The sun was setting over Frontier Colony 7, painting the sky orange and red as Tom Baker wiped grease from his hands. His workshop sat on 3 acres of land at the edge of the settlement, far enough from neighbors that the constant clanging of metal wouldn't bother anyone. Inside the connected small house, his daughter Lily was finishing her homework at the kitchen table. "Dad, I'm hungry," Lily called out, her voice carrying across the yard. Tom smiled tiredly. At 34, his face already showed lines around his eyes from squinting at engine parts and staying up late with worry. Being both mom and dad to an 8-year-old wasn't easy, especially since Annie had died in the colony's flu outbreak 2 years ago. "Coming, sweetheart. Just finishing up Mr. Thompson's tractor," he shouted back. The colony needed every working vehicle it could get, and Tom was the only mechanic for 20 miles. He was about to put his tools away when the ground shook beneath his feet. A blinding light streaked across the darkening sky, followed by a sound like thunder that seemed to go on forever. Tom grabbed the workbench to steady himself as the roar grew louder, culminating in a massive crash that echoed through the trees. "Lily, stay inside," Tom yelled, already running toward the woods. Whatever had fallen was big, and on a frontier world like this, anything unexpected was usually bad news. The trees had been flattened in a straight line nearly half a mile long. At the end of this destructive path sat something that made Tom's heart race, a spacecraft unlike any human vessel he'd ever seen. It gleamed despite the damage, its hull made of a material that shifted colors like oil on water. Parts of it were clearly broken, with strange fluids leaking onto the scorched earth. "Hello?" Tom called out cautiously, pulling the flashlight from his belt. "Anyone alive in there?" A section of the hull slid open with a hiss. Tom raised his arm to shield his eyes from the bright interior light. When he lowered it, he froze. Standing, no swaying, in the doorway was the tallest woman he'd ever seen. Except she wasn't a woman at all. Her skin was blue, not the pale blue of someone cold, but vibrant, almost glowing blue with patterns that seemed to shift beneath the surface. Her hair fell past her shoulders in thick strands that looked like liquid silver. And she was tall, at least 8 feet, forcing her to duck under the doorway of her own ship. The alien's eyes opened, 3 of them, the third centered above the others, revealing pupils that looked like swirling galaxies. She took 1 step forward and collapsed. Tom hesitated only a moment before running forward. Whatever she was hurt. He checked for a pulse, relieved to find one, though it beat in an odd rhythm against his fingers. "Dad." Lily's voice came from behind him. Of course she hadn't stayed inside. "Lily, I told you to. Is that a real alien?" Lily whispered, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. Before Tom could answer, the blue-skinned giant stirred, those galaxy eyes focusing first on Tom, then on Lily. The alien spoke, but the sounds were like nothing Tom had ever heard, clicking and humming tones no human throat could make. A device on the alien's wrist lit up, processing the sounds. After a moment, broken English emerged. "Ship damaged. Help. Need help." Tom and Lily exchanged glances. The colony authorities should be called. The military too. But looking at the injured visitor, Tom saw only someone in trouble, far from home. "I'm Tom. This is my daughter Lily. Are you hurt?" he asked slowly. The alien touched her wrist device again. "Valera," she said, pointing to herself. "Merchant. Navigation, broken." She gestured weakly at her ship. "Fix? Pay." From a pocket in her strange clothing, she pulled out crystals that caught the fading light, splitting it into rainbows. "Worth much." Tom had been struggling since Annie died. The colony paid for essential services, but barely enough. These crystals, even if they were just pretty stones, could be worth something to the right collector. "I'll see what I can do," Tom said. "But first, let's get you somewhere safe." With Lily's help, they managed to get Valera to their house, the alien limping between them, her weight nearly crushing Tom's shoulder. Meanwhile, across the vastness of space, alarms blared through the massive ships of the Royal Valaxian Armada. Admiral Dorn paced the command bridge, his gray scales standing on end. "What do you mean, disappeared?" he demanded. "The Crown Princess cannot simply vanish." "Sir, her ship entered stealth mode and then, nothing," the officer reported, voice trembling. "The last tracking placed her near the human territories in Sector 9. Admiral Dorn slammed his fist on the console. "Find her. The princess carries the royal access codes to our entire defense network. If she's been captured." He didn't finish the thought. The consequences were too terrible to voice. Back on the colony world, Tom tucked a blanket around their strange guest sleeping on their too small couch. Lily watched from the doorway in her pajamas. "Dad," she whispered, "are we in trouble?" Tom smiled reassuringly, though his stomach was tied in knots. "No, sweetie. We're just helping someone who needs it. Just like Mom would have done." Neither of them could possibly know that they were harboring the most important being in the Valaxian Empire, or that their simple act of kindness would soon change the course of human history forever. The morning after the crash, Tom stood inside Valera's ship, staring at technology that made his best tools look like stone axes. Twisted metal and broken crystal panels filled the control room. Wires, if you could call the strange glowing threads wires, hung loose from the ceiling. Sparks jumped between components that hummed with energy even though the ship's main power was off. I don't even know where to start," Tom admitted as Valera ducked her tall frame to join him. Valera pointed to a pulsing blue sphere in the center of the room. "Engine core. Need first." Tom nodded slowly, though he understood nothing about the alien technology. "Right. Engine first." That evening, when he finally trudged back to the house, his daughter Lily peppered him with questions. "Is she staying? What's her planet like? Does she have kids? Can she fly without a ship?" Tom smiled despite his exhaustion. "Slow down, kiddo. She's staying until I fix her ship. And no, she can't fly without it." "Is it hard to fix?" Lily asked through a mouthful of macaroni. "Imagine trying to fix a jet plane with a hammer and some duct tape," Tom sighed. "I'm not even sure what half the components do." Days turned into weeks. Tom woke before dawn and worked until his fingers cramped, learning alien technology through trial and error. Valera helped when she could, but many systems were automated on her world. She knew how to operate them, not repair them. "Like you not knowing how make phone, just use," she explained through her translator, which was slowly adapting to English. Tom figured out that the glowing threads weren't wires at all, but some kind of light conduit that carried both energy and information. He had to modify his tools just to handle them without getting shocked. By the second week, Lily had completely lost her fear of their blue-skinned guest. Each afternoon after school, she brought snacks to the ship and sat watching them work. "Want help?" she asked one day, offering Valera a sandwich cut into triangles. Valera's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. Something Tom had learned was her version of a smile. She patted the floor beside her with a 6-fingered hand. "Come. Learn stars." Soon it became routine. Lily would finish her homework in the ship while Tom and Valera worked. The alien used holographic displays to show Lily star systems and planets, teaching her names that human tongues could barely pronounce. One evening, as rain drummed on the ship's hull, Tom worked underneath a console while Valera helped Lily with math problems. "You're really good at numbers," Lily said, watching Valera calculate complex equations in her head. "Did you go to school for a really long time?" "Yes. Many years of learning." "How come you're traveling by yourself? Don't you have a family?" Lily asked, chewing her pencil. Tom paused his work, listening. Valera had been vague about her background. Valera's voice softened. "Have large family. Many who call themselves friends. But sometimes even among many one can be alone." She looked over at Tom, watching his hands deftly connect components that weren't meant to work together. His fingers were rough and calloused, nails cracked and broken from years of hard work. "Your father understands. He is alone, yet not alone with you." Tom pretended not to hear, but the alien's words hit home. Since Annie died, he'd felt that exact contradiction, surrounded by colony folk, yet completely alone except for Lily. The spring rains intensified over the next few days, flooding low-lying areas of the colony. Water pooled around the foundations of Tom's workshop. He and Valera worked frantically to move the ship's repair operation inside before the access panel he'd been fixing was submerged. The night after they successfully relocated, Lily woke up coughing. By morning she was burning with fever, her breathing labored. "I need to get her to the colony doctor," Tom said, panic rising as he lifted his daughter's limp form. "Roads flooded," Valera said, looking out the window at the water surrounding their property. "Wait." She retrieved what looked like a small silver rod from her quarters on the ship. "Scanner. Will help." Tom hesitated, but Lily's wheezing made the decision for him. "Do it." Valera passed the device over Lily's chest. It emitted a soft blue light. "Infection in lungs. I fix." What Tom didn't see was Valera pressing a hidden sequence on the rod, activating functions that no ordinary merchant would have access to. The device hummed, projecting an invisible field that swept through Lily's body, targeting the infection with precision only royal medical technology could achieve. By morning, Lily's fever was gone. Her breathing was normal. When Tom took her to the doctor once the roads cleared, the physician was baffled. "These scans show she had severe pneumonia, but there's no sign of it now," the doctor said, reviewing the colony's basic medical scanner. "Not even residual inflammation. It's like she was never sick." On the drive home, Tom glanced at Valera, who sat uncomfortably folded into the passenger seat of his truck. "That's some recovery," he muttered. "Almost like magic." Valera stared out the window. "Good medicine. Not magic." Tom's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He wasn't sure what Valera was hiding, but he was becoming increasingly certain that "simple merchant" was far from the truth. 4 weeks into the repair project, Tom stepped back from the ship's main control panel, wiping sweat from his forehead. The spring sun beat down through the workshop's open doors, creating rainbow patterns where it struck the ship's hull. "I think that's it," he said, barely believing it himself. "The navigation system is responding. Life support, engines all green across the board." Valera's 3 eyes widened as she ran her long blue fingers over the newly repaired console. "You fixed impossible thing. Broken quantum stabilizer. Damaged phase coils." Lily clapped her hands excitedly. "Does this mean it can fly again?" "1 test flight," Tom nodded. "Then Valera can head home." He tried to keep his voice neutral, though the thought of their unusual guest leaving brought an unexpected heaviness to his chest. "We'll do a system check tonight and—" Tom's words died in his throat as a shadow passed over the workshop. The sound came next, a high-pitched whine that made his teeth ache. Lily covered her ears, running to her father's side. "Dad? What is that?" Tom stepped outside, shielding his eyes against the sun. 3 sleek vessels hovered above his property, each one at least twice the size of Valera's ship. Unlike her damaged craft, these were clearly warships, bristling with what could only be weapons, their polished surfaces gleaming menacingly. "Valera?" Tom called back toward the workshop, his voice tight. "You expecting company?" Valera emerged, her tall frame rigid with tension. Something in her posture had changed. Gone was the curious, sometimes awkward visitor. She stood straighter, her chin lifted, eyes focused on the ships with what looked like resignation. "Inside," she said quietly. "Take Lily inside house." "What's happening? Who are they?" Tom demanded, pulling Lily closer. Before Valera could answer, beams of light shot down from each ship, materializing into armored figures. The soldiers, at least 15 of them, stood 7 feet tall, their bodies encased in shimmering armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Each carried what was unmistakably a weapon, glowing with barely contained energy. As one they approached, moving with disciplined precision. When they reached Valera, every soldier dropped to one knee in perfect unison, heads bowed. "Your Highness," the lead soldier announced, his helmet retracting to reveal a face similar to Valera's but with crimson skin instead of blue. "The Royal Armada has been searching across 17 sectors for you. We feared the worst." Tom's grip on his wrench tightened as the words sank in. "Your Highness?" The commander's gaze shifted to Tom and Lily, his expression hardening. "This human will be executed for your abduction. The child will be taken for evaluation." "What?" Tom gasped, pushing Lily behind him. "Nobody abducted anybody." Lily clung to her father's leg, her small body trembling. "Dad." The commander raised his weapon. "Silence, human. You address the Crown Princess Valeraxia of the Galactic Sovereign. Your primitive mind cannot comprehend the crime of detaining royal personage." "Commander Rex," Valera spoke, and her voice, her whole being, had transformed. Gone was any trace of broken English or hesitancy. Her voice rang with authority, the translator no longer struggling with simple phrases but conveying perfect, commanding language. "You overstep your authority," she continued. "This human offered shelter and skill when my royal status was unknown to him. He repaired what our finest engineers claimed was irreparable, using nothing but primitive tools and extraordinary ingenuity." The commander rose, his posture stiff. "With respect, Your Highness, the human must be contained. The royal protocols are clear. No outsider who discovers your identity can be permitted to—" "I am well aware of the protocols," Valera cut him off. "I wrote several of them during my tenure as security minister before my ascension." Tom stared at her, his mind reeling. "Minister? Ascension?" The woman, the alien, who had slept on his too small couch and helped his daughter with homework was royalty. When the commander persisted, gesturing for 2 soldiers to seize Tom, Valera's patience visibly snapped. She reached for a crystal medallion hanging around her neck, something Tom had assumed was merely jewelry, and yanked it free. The crystal pulsed once, twice, and Commander Rex's armor suddenly dimmed, panels that had glowed with power now dark and lifeless. The soldier froze, his movements restricted by his now dead-weight suit. What have you done?" he gasped. "I am still Crown Princess," Valera said, her voice dangerously soft, "and you have just been relieved of duty. The override codes to your combat armor are among many things only I control." She turned to the other soldiers. "Return to your ships. Maintain orbit until further notice." The soldiers hesitated, looking between their immobilized commander and their princess. "Now," Valera commanded, and they retreated immediately, dragging their paralyzed leader with them. When they were gone, Tom finally found his voice. "You're a princess?" The betrayal in his tone was unmistakable. "All this time?" Lily stepped forward, her fear replaced by confusion. "Is that why you knew so much about stars? Because you're a space princess." Valera's regal bearing softened as she looked at the child. Then she turned to Tom, regret evident in her strange eyes. "I disabled my own ship," she admitted quietly. "The damage was deliberate. Not all of it, the crash was an accident, but the initial malfunction." She sighed. "I needed freedom. Just for a while." Tom ran a hand through his hair, struggling to process what had just happened. "So I've been harboring alien royalty. Great. That's just great." He laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "Anything else I should know? Are those crystals you paid me with worth planets or something?" Valera looked away. "Actually," Tom groaned. "Perfect. Just perfect." Tom paced the length of his small kitchen, which now seemed impossibly cramped. 4 royal guards stood at attention along the walls, their armor gleaming under the simple overhead light. Lily sat at the table with a mug of hot chocolate clutched in her hands, her eyes darting nervously between the aliens and her father. Valera, or Princess Valeraxia apparently, had shed her simple traveler's clothes. She now wore a shimmering outfit that seemed to flow around her tall frame like liquid metal, responding to her movements in ways that defied physics. A circlet of glowing crystals crowned her silver hair. "Start talking," Tom said, his voice tight with anger and confusion. "The whole truth this time." Valera nodded. "I owe you that much." She waved a hand and the guard stepped outside, leaving just the 3 of them. "The Valaxian Empire," she began, "spans 300 star systems across what you call the Orion arm of the galaxy. We have existed as a unified civilization for over 12,000 years. She touched a device on her wrist, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy that filled the kitchen with pinpoints of light. Tom watched as hundreds of stars glowed bright blue, marking Valaxian territory. Earth and its few colonies appeared as tiny specks at the edge of the display. "Your world," Valera continued, "is registered in our databases as potential interest resource category. We've observed human development for centuries but deemed your species too primitive for formal contact." Tom's jaw tightened. "Primitive? Thanks. I didn't say I agreed with that assessment," Valera replied softly. "In fact, my experiences here have convinced me otherwise." Lily piped up, "Why did you run away if you're a princess? Don't princesses have everything they want?" A sad smile crossed Valera's face. "No, little one. Sometimes princesses have the least freedom of all." She turned back to Tom. "I am Crown Princess, sole heir to the throne. My mother, Empress Tizelia, arranged my marriage to Warlord Draken of the Mavonian Collective, a brutal but powerful ruler. The marriage would secure peace between our empires after generations of war." "And you didn't want to marry him," Tom guessed. "Would you want to spend eternity with someone who conquered 16 worlds and keeps the skulls of defeated enemies in his throne room?" Valera asked bitterly. "But the treaty requires a royal binding. I am the only eligible royal. The choice was simple, my freedom or the lives of billions who would die if war resumed." She moved to the window, looking out at the stars becoming visible in the evening sky. "So I ran. I disabled my ship's tracking systems and navigation, intending to hide in neutral space for a few weeks. Force a delay in the proceedings. But the damage was worse than I planned and I crashed here instead." Tom leaned against the counter, processing her words. "You lied to us. For weeks." "I did," Valera acknowledged, meeting his gaze directly. "At first because I feared what might happen if you knew. Later." She hesitated, "because I didn't want things to change. In your home I found something my empire's wealth could never buy, genuine connection." She looked at Lily. "Honest questions. Simple meals. No one bowing or agreeing with everything I say out of fear." The kitchen fell silent. Even Lily seemed to understand the weight of the moment. "What happens now?" Tom finally asked. Before Valera could answer, a deep rumbling shook the house. Pictures fell from walls. Dishes rattled in cabinets. Outside, the evening sky had vanished, replaced by the massive underbelly of a ship that dwarfed the vessels that had arrived earlier. "Mother," Valera whispered, her 3 eyes wide with what Tom recognized as fear. The guards burst back in. "Your Highness, the Imperial flagship has arrived. The Empress demands your presence, and that of the humans." Tom grabbed Lily's hand. "We're not going anywhere." "Dad," Lily whispered, "I think we have to." Outside, a column of light wider than Tom's entire workshop appeared in the yard. Within it materialized a figure that made Valera look small by comparison. The Empress stood at least 12 feet tall, her skin a deep purple that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Instead of hair, crown-like structures of bone or carapace rose from her head, adorned with pulsing crystals. Her robes looked woven from the night sky itself, with what appeared to be actual stars twinkling in their depths. When she spoke, the air itself seemed to vibrate. "Valaraxia, you have shamed the Imperial House with this escapade." Her 3 eyes, larger than Valera's and burning with inner fire, turned to Tom and Lily. "And these are the primitives who sheltered you?" The guards pushed Tom and Lily forward. One whispered harshly, "Bow before addressing the Empress." To everyone's surprise, including his own, Tom remained standing. His heart hammered in his chest, but 17 years of raising a child alone had taught him that sometimes you had to stand your ground, no matter how terrified you felt. "Your daughter," he said, his voice steadier than he expected, "deserves the same choices my Lily will have someday. Royal or not." Gasps came from the guards. One raised a weapon, but the Empress raised a 6-fingered hand, stopping him. "The human speaks to me thus?" she asked, but there was more curiosity than anger in her tone. She leaned down, bringing her massive face closer to Tom's. "You stand before the ruler of 300 worlds, human. Does fear not touch you?" Tom swallowed hard. "I'm terrified. But I've watched your daughter fix my daughter's homework, laugh at bad jokes, and work until her hands were sore helping me repair her ship. She's a person before she's a princess. Even I know that much." The Empress's eyes narrowed, studying this unusual human with newfound interest. For several long seconds no one moved or spoke. Then, surprisingly, the corner of her mouth curved upward. "Interesting," she said simply. "Very interesting indeed." 6 months after the Empress's arrival at their modest home on Frontier Colony 7, Tom Baker found himself standing at the edge of a transport pad, holding his daughter's hand tightly as they prepared to step onto an alien world. Lily wore her best dress, the one with planets and stars that her mother had sewn before she died, while Tom had managed to find a suit that almost fit his frame. "Ready?" he asked, looking down at his daughter. Lily nodded, her eyes wide with excitement. "Will Valera be there to meet us?" "Princess Valaraxia," Tom corrected gently, still getting used to the formality himself, and yes, she promised she would. They stepped from the diplomatic shuttle onto platforms made of crystal that hummed beneath their feet. The Valaxian capital stretched before them, a city of impossible towers that curved and twisted toward a sky filled with 3 suns. Vehicles that looked like liquid metal moved through the air in orderly patterns. Beings of various heights and colors walked, slithered, or floated along transparent walkways. "Dad," Lily whispered, "everyone's staring at us." She was right. The Valaxians they passed stopped and watched, their 3 eyes blinking in what Tom had learned was their expression of surprise. Humans had never set foot on the Valaxian homeworld before. According to Valera, most citizens had assumed humans were little more than clever animals. A delegation waited at the end of the platform. Valera stood at its center, dressed in formal attire that made her look even taller, her silver hair arranged in an intricate pattern around her crystal crown. Despite the formality, her 3 eyes crinkled at the corners when she saw them, the Valaxian equivalent of a smile. "Ambassador Baker," she said formally, using Tom's new title. "Citizen Lily. The Valaxian Empire welcomes you." Tom inclined his head as he'd been instructed. "Your Highness, we're honored to be here." Later that week, Tom sat at a massive table made from what appeared to be a single piece of some luminescent material. Around him, alien dignitaries in elaborate costumes waited as he reviewed the trade proposal before him. "So," he said slowly, "you want exclusive mining rights to the asteroid belt in our solar system?" The trade minister, a thin Valaxian with pale green skin, nodded. "The minerals there would be most valuable to our manufacturing sector. And in exchange you're offering technical assistance with our colony ships? Indeed. Our propulsion systems would reduce your travel time between stars from decades to mere months. Tom leaned back, tapping his finger on the table, a habit that made several dignitaries blink rapidly in disapproval. He wasn't a diplomat by training. For months ago he'd been fixing tractors and irrigation pumps. But after the Empress's visit, everything had changed. Here's the thing, Tom said. Those asteroids represent about 80% of humanity's accessible resources in space. We can't give exclusive rights to anyone. But, he raised a hand as the minister began to object, we could offer joint mining operations. Your technology, our labor. Split everything 50-50. A ripple of whispers passed through the room. The minister looked scandalized. Equal shares? Between the Valaxian Empire and Earth. Exactly, Tom nodded. Partners. Not master and servant. That's the only way this works. From across the room, one advisor whispered to another, the princess said humans were resourceful. She did not mention they were audacious as well. To everyone's surprise, the trade minister eventually agreed. It became the first of many agreements that Tom would negotiate using nothing but common sense, practical logic and straightforward honesty, qualities apparently rare in imperial politics. Meanwhile, Lily had found her own role in the new human-Valaxian relationship. Enrolled in both Earth School via long-distance learning and special tutoring with royal educators, she became a natural bridge between cultures. During one lesson on Valaxian governance, Lily raised her hand. But why do the farm planets have to give 90% of their food to the central worlds? Her tutor, an elderly Valaxian scholar, blinked in confusion. Because that is the imperial taxation rate established by the founding decree. But then the farmers don't have enough to eat themselves, Lily pointed out. My dad says no system works if the people doing the actual work go hungry. The scholar had no answer. The next day, Princess Valera attended the lesson, listening intently as Lily innocently questioned centuries-old traditions that no Valaxian would dare challenge. Within weeks, Empress Tazelia had formed a committee to review taxation policies across the empire, the first of many reforms sparked by a child's simple questions. 3 months into their stay, Tom stood in the Great Hall of Imperial Assembly, watching as thousands of delegates from hundreds of worlds gathered for a historic occasion. Lily fidgeted beside him in her formal attire, her hair neatly braided in the human fashion but adorned with tiny Valaxian crystals, a gift from Valera. The Empress entered, her massive form commanding immediate silence. Beside her walked Princess Valera and, surprisingly, Warlord Draken of the Mavonian Collective, a broad-shouldered being whose gray skin was covered in battle scars. The arranged marriage had been postponed indefinitely, but peace negotiations continued. Today, the Empress's voice filled the hall without need for amplification. We announced the formation of the Human-Valaxian Alliance, the first step toward welcoming humanity into the greater galactic community. Murmurs filled the hall, some approving, others clearly skeptical. The Empress continued, Princess Valeraxia will now present the symbol of our new partnership. Valera stepped forward, activating a holographic display that filled the center of the hall. It showed a fleet of ships unlike any in the Valaxian Armada, sleeker, simpler, yet somehow elegant in their design. These are the vessels of our new diplomatic corps, Valera announced. Based on innovative repair solutions developed by Ambassador Baker when my ship crashed on his world. His approach, using simpler systems working in harmony rather than complex technology dependent on central control, has revolutionized our engineering division. She turned, catching Tom's eye across the hall. From a crashed ship in a human's backyard came the reminder that true power lies not in our technology or wealth, but in compassion and ingenuity, traits this humble species possesses in abundance. The hall erupted in applause, tentative at first, then growing stronger. Tom felt Lily squeeze his hand. Dad, we did it, she whispered. He smiled, watching as Valera descended from the platform to join them, her royal bearing momentarily softening as she approached. Not bad for a colony mechanic, she said quietly. Tom nodded, thinking of the broken ship that had changed everything. Sometimes, he replied, fixing broken things leads to building something entirely new. Valera's 3 eyes crinkled at the corners. Indeed, Ambassador. Indeed. Above them, the holographic fleet of new ships, human ingenuity married to Valaxian technology, circled endlessly, a promise of journeys yet to come.